This video is sponsored by Describe. As somebody who has been digging his toes into Pathfinder this year, I was really keen to check out the Pathfinder Beginner Box. Like the D&D starter sets, this box is meant to onboard gaming groups to a brand new system. But Pathfinder is a more complex game than D&D, and yet the folks at Paizo have a reputation for making their products really easy to understand and to use. And I was super curious how they would thread that needle, especially for something truly produced for beginners. And thankfully, one of my viewers, ShadowForce4, sent me a copy a few months ago for my birthday. I am really grateful to them for sending it. That was super awesome of them. Of course, then Paizo also sent me a copy, which was also super nice of them, but I don't really need 2 copies. So stay tuned to the end of this video to find out how you can win this copy. Also, for the purposes of disclosure, yes, I received this free copy from Paizo, but they didn't pay me, I didn't pay them, and they didn't even ask for assurances that I would give them a positive review. So these are just my genuine thoughts, good and bad, about the Pathfinder Beginner Box. I also opened this box live on Twitch, so let's start there. I think it's fun to see my reactions to each element of the box, and then I'll come back and offer my final thoughts. This is what we are opening today, the Pathfinder Beginner's Box. This specific copy was actually a gift from a viewer named ShadowForce4, which was super awesome of them. And since I'm just getting into Pathfinder and getting used to it, I thought opening up this box and reviewing how it is presented to new players would be really interesting. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, well, here's the box. I like the heft of this. I like it a lot. It's somewhat unavoidable when we are talking about any RPG product, but especially something like Pathfinder, to compare it to something like D&D. But man, this feels like you're getting a board game, and like a real board game, whereas the starter sets for D&D, not always the case. And this is not a knock against them, and in order for Pathfinder to be well-reviewed does not mean that D&D has to be poorly reviewed. It doesn't have to work that way. I just like the heft of it a lot. Alrighty. Oh, this is nice. So first thing that I got are these little bases for miniatures, but specifically, these would be the kind of miniatures that are flat. I know Paizo makes some of these. I'm assuming by getting these bases that there will be miniatures further in this box, and that's awesome. That's kind of a cool moment for me as like someone who has been a member of the RPG community for a long time, to open this up and go, oh, there's going to be minis in here. And then there are dice. And each one is a different color. We don't have the doubles for the percentile, but we've got a red D20, blue D12, green D10, orange D8, purple D6, and a yellow D4. And I think that is smart. First of all, I know that this set, I've already heard this, I'm not a total stranger to it. My understanding is that you will use colors to help distinguish which die to roll, which is nice. I also like that for each individual die, there are certain dice that we tend to get mixed up a lot, right? The D20 and the D12 are both the round ones, and the D10 and the D8 are both the sort of pyramid-looking ones. So I like that those are very different colors. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, even if you're colorblind, you won't get these mixed up, right? Because people are red-green colorblind, and the red and the green are not similar dice. So that's really smart. They were smart about that. Ty, you asked, is this a starter set equivalent? Well, first thing that I get is something called Read This First. So let's see. Let's see what they say about that. What is Pathfinder? Pathfinder is a cooperative tabletop role-playing game, also called an RPG, of fantasy adventure. Grab some friends to play the heroes in an adventuring party, go on a quest, explore mysterious environments, battle dangerous monsters, find treasure, and tell a story together. Oh, if you're on your own. Pathfinder is designed for group play, but this box includes a solo adventure you can play on your own. Open the Hero's Handbook to page 2 to play Pirate King's Plunder, which will teach you the basics of the game. If you have a group, every group needs a game master to read and run the adventure. Pick one player to be the game master, the rest of the players will be fantasy heroes. If you want to start right away, grab one of the pre-generated character sheets. You can play the devout cleric Kyra, the mysterious fighter Valeros, the sneaky rogue Meriziel, or the intelligent wizard Ezrin. Take the character folio for that character and the cardboard pawn that matches them. If you want to make your own character, take a blank character sheet, turn to page 12 in the Hero's Handbook. The Hero's Handbook. The book will guide you through filling out your character sheet to make your unique hero. When you're done, choose a pawn to match your character. If you want to be the Game Master, take the Game Master's Guide. The Game Master or GM gets to know all the secrets and play all the monsters in the game. Turn to page 2 in the Game Master's Guide to read up on the first adventure that our heroes will face. Menace under Otari. Oh, and then this is what it includes. So that's the, introduction. And then here's the what is included in this game. There's a flip mat included in this. That's nice. And pawns, tokens. And the bases for them. And reference cards, which is the next thing in the set. Okay, so these are just action cards. I mean, honestly, this is just useful for me as someone who's getting used to Pathfinder. A player reference card with conditions on the back, including the rolls for successes and failures and crit successes and crit failures. The rolls, rolling 20 or 1, which is not the same thing. For those who don't know, in Pathfinder, you get a critical success if you exceed the DC by 10 or more, and a critical failure if you get 10 or below, 10 below or more, the DC. But you rolling a 1 and a 20, increase the degree of success by 1 step for a 20, decrease the success by 1 degree for a 1. Okay, that's useful for me to remember. And then what a DC is, and then how actions work. Okay, so these are the basic actions. That's good for me to know. Commuter, you say, something that's neat about the box is, as you understand, the pre-builts are all of iconics used in other art throughout the books. Yeah, I think Pathfinder does that a lot. So, sure enough, this is the fighter who I've seen in all of the necessary art involving a fighter. Is this... I see, they're folded inside of each other. So there's the rogue. I've seen that art, I just didn't realize she was a rogue. This one I've seen. This is the cleric. And I knew she was a cleric because she's got the symbol of Sarenrae, which for unrelated reasons on my channel I am familiar with, and the wizard. But they're all the same size, and that's nice. Oh, hold on. There's a thing on the back for them as well. That's cool. About this character. Interesting. I know why they do it. I personally have never totally loved... I don't remember how the D&D starter sets do it. They might do this as well. I just personally don't ever love it when the stuff looks like it's handwritten in, but I understand why they do it. That's a personal preference. I'm not wild about the fonts that everyone always uses when they do that. But again, Pathfinder is not the only ones that do that. Oh, I see. So everything is labeled. A, B, C, D. That's smart. It's for the most part, it all descends down the page alphabetically. Well, sorry. Okay, so it's all categorized with its own thing. So, yes, A for ancestry, B for background, C for class, but then D is ability modifiers, which obviously doesn't start with a D. So at that point, they're just, organizing these things appropriately. I like that they included pronouns on this. That's cool. So Valeros' pronouns are he, him. Spellcasting. Okay, so N. So they gave him an extra category, because M is equipment. Equipment for M. That's not why. It's just because it's the last thing that's on the fighter character sheet. So it's actually on the other page. That is kind of a bummer that equipment has to be on its own on this other page, because there's just no room for it here. Maybe that's because they have the dice on this. I don't know how the character sheet normally looks. That's always the thing, right, with character sheets, is how do you get all the information on there? First, you have to decide what's relevant. It's also not just the dice. It's also the list of actions, basically. 1 action, 2 actions, like what the action icons represent, and what the proficiency means, I guess. Proficiency, untrained, 0. Trained is a +2. And expert is +4. So it's basically telling you how you got the numbers you got. Oh, 2 plus level. Yes, okay. Yeah, so how you got the numbers you got. So it is kind of a bummer. It's tough because you need to make sure that all the relevant information is on there. So you have to decide what's relevant. How do you lay it all out in an intelligent way? And how much can you fit on a page without totally reducing the ability to use the character sheet? Like, I kind of liked the character sheets from D&D Next, but I didn't love them because they were not great at transmitting that information. Now the nice thing is that with the cleric and the wizard, because you're already using a second page for equipment, it's not that difficult to then say, oh, also, instead of just having equipment up here, where would it be? Like right here, they have equipment down here, but then this is spells. So they just basically give you the entire spell written out. It's sort of unfortunate that they have to do that, but unfortunately with games like this, there's really no other way to do it. There's nice that there's some cool art on here, though. There's like a spell book on the wizard one. Ezrin was raised as a younger son of a successful spice merchant. He enjoyed the comforts of a well-to-do family, lived in a neighborhood that was relatively free of crime, and had no lofty ambitions. However, when the Church of the Merchant God accused his father of heresy and corruption, ruining the family business, Ezrin was determined to prove his father's innocence. To his shock, the church's accusations were true. Outraged, Ezrin left his home and began studying magic on his own, as no wizard would take a 40-year-old as an apprentice. Now he wants to travel the world and make a difference in other people's lives. Ezrin is skeptical of human nature, instead putting his trust in his own brilliant intellect and magical abilities. Okay, so that was really smart. You have the old wizard archetype with the art, because everyone wants to play the old wizard, but you also give him a backstory to say, yeah, he is a level 1 character, but he's also an old man wizard. That's smart. Ooh, this is a thick book. This is the Beginner's Box Hero's Handbook. So this includes solo play, what is a role-playing game, dice, how do rolling checks work, how do actions work, basic concepts and rules, okay. And then creating your hero. That was only 2 pages. That's pretty good. I also like this little detail just for the artwork. This is the kind of stuff that I enjoy. Is for creating your hero, the art they show is a sketch of a hero, and then the, slightly more developed version of the character, and then the fully sketched and detailed version. That's a nice detail. It's a cool way to represent what you're doing. Anyway, there's ancestries, backgrounds, and then the cleric, fighter, rogue, and wizard, and second level spells for the cleric and wizard, skills, and playing the game. Backgrounds, got a few of those. Acolyte, criminal, deckhand, farmer, gambler, scholar, warrior. That's almost as many as are in the player's handbook for D&D. Play a cleric if you want to. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is cool. I like this. Play a cleric if you want to. Support and heal your allies with divine spells. Fight with the favored weapon of your deity. Know about the religious writings and images. Oppose and destroy evil undead creatures. During combat encounters, you balance between casting spells and attacking with weapons, typically the favorite enemy of your deity. Most of your spells can boost, protect, or heal your allies. While exploring, you detect nearby magic and interpret any religious writings or icons you come across. You might also concentrate on a protective spell for your allies in case of attack. After a battle or hazard, you might heal anyone who is hurt. Oh, and here we go. Deity. Desna, the butterfly goddess of dreams, luck, and travel. There's a paragraph about her. Sarenrae and Torag. So there are 3 gods, and each one gives you a different spell. Throughout this book, there are yellow letters that show you where on the character sheet this information would be relevant. And that's cool. So, for example, spellcasting obviously goes to N. War Priest says you gain the shield block reaction. Write this in the class section of your character sheet, C. That's cool. You become trained in the nature skill, G, and the scimitar. Write this in other weapon proficiencies in K. Okay, that's cool. I like the way they're presenting this information. This is nice. I like that they made that the emphasis. Use the biggest weapons. Or 2 at once, exclamation point. Because that's the power fantasy for some people. And I think that it's really nice to convey that really early on. Fight on the front lines, react quickly to enemy actions, wear the best armor and carry a shield, frighten or bully your foes. And then again, during combat encounters and while exploring, it gives you 2 different senses of how your character will work. I was just thinking here, I was like, oh yeah, I'm seeing this, but also this is the same artwork that's on the pre-printed sheet. Wouldn't you look at this and go, couldn't I just make a, why should I make a character if I'm just going to wind up making the same character? Well, again, that might be how you're feeling, which is why on the next page, yes, there's art of that character in action. There's also a different fighter who looks very different. Yeah, the cleric has 4 examples of what you do if you want to play a cleric. The fighter has 5, because they're very brief and very simple. The rogue has 4, the wizard only has 3, but the 3 that he has are really good. They make sure to say, gain a deeper understanding of the schools of magic than any other class. I just wanted to break in and highlight how this beginner box includes descriptions of how the classes described in the book each maintain their different class identities, which is really useful for players to figure out what kind of character they might want to play, especially if they already have an idea in their head. But even so, it can still be a challenge to describe your character at the table in a cool and evocative way. Thankfully, you can use today's sponsor, Describe, to find the words when you can't come up with them yourself. Describe is an ENnie award-winning publisher that works with a team of amazing writers to come up with descriptive text for locations, monsters, magic items, NPC and player character descriptions, and even dialogue. They have more than 10,000 fantasy scenes, and they've also recently premiered a line of sci-fi descriptions, which already has more than 1,000 scenes that they're constantly adding new ones to. And that's to say nothing of the awesome maps and music and sound effects library that you can drop directly into your game. But also, they have those too, and they're awesome. And the fine folks at Describe are offering a discount to viewers of this channel. If you visit describe.com/supergeek and use the promo code SUPERGEEK at checkout, you'll receive 10% off of your first subscription payment. Once again, that's dscryb.com/supergeek. Thank you so much to Describe for sponsoring this video. There's a whole list of skills. Wow. Okay. This is a pretty comprehensive guide. I appreciate that. Actions, damage, moving on a grid. That's nice. That's a good place to include that information if, hypothetically, you are making new rule books for some sort of fantasy adventure game and you're wondering where you should put information about moving on a grid. Maybe here, in the section about actions and damage and movement. Maybe put it there. The unconscious condition is printed on the back cover as well. And it's also on this page. Like this is the exact same information. I can't judge the rules in this moment, in the difference between them. And yes, we have a little bit of the stereotype of the difference between D&D and Pathfinder in the length of this book. This is 72 pages, which is not a small amount. That's a relatively small amount of the Pathfinder book, because it doesn't give you nearly all the options that that book has, and I'm sure there's a lot more in the Pathfinder rulebook that I haven't even gotten to yet, aside from just the fact that it takes each of these classes to, I assume, 20th level, though I realize I don't actually know that right now off the top of my head, but I'm assuming Pathfinder has 20 levels, but it has all that information. Obviously this one does not. So there's a bit of like the stereotype here, and maybe that's part of why the book is as heavy as it is, but there's also some places where I'm just like, hey, that's a really good way to include that information, and it would have been nice if some of D&D's books had that sort of information. So the front is very similar to what we got in the character sheet page of the regular, of the pre-generated character sheets. And then the back, this equipment section was off on its own, but also that's because they were giving you the equipment and they could just give you all the information in a little corner. It was kind of annoying that it bled over to a different page, and then you had all the list of spells. But here, this whole column is equipment and spells. That's a better way to use your second page, I think, which is nice. It doesn't feel like wasted space. And then you have Adventures Log, Notes, and Spell Book, which I'm assuming is the list of spells. I would have to go back and look at the Hero's Handbook and see. And Character Portrait, which is nice. I don't know how much people really use this one section of the... I mean, in my, 16 years of playing D&D, I don't know how much people have ever used the notes section to keep track of everything, but you can keep some important stuff there. I see. So the adventure log is like, here's the date, here's a description. I don't know how much you can really fit in this little amount of space, but you can try. And earned XP. These, I think, are really carryovers from lots of character sheets do these things. I personally have never really seen the sense in that. But people keep putting them on character sheets for a reason. People must want them. So, who am I to say don't do that? But otherwise, it seems like it's very much the character sheet from the pre-generated ones, which makes sense. You want them to be compatible. And then the Game Master's Guide, which I assume is an adventure. Okay. A good chunk of it is. Actually, not a huge amount of it is. The first 26 pages, roughly, are the adventure Menace under Otari. Then you have a section on game mastering, building adventures, environments, magic items, creatures, and a map of, and the area of Otari, and then an index. And then we have I'm going to sneak ahead just a little bit. we have a flip mat here of a location, and in the inside cover, we have the marked up numbered version. So at a glance, you can just see. Now, there's no key here, so I'm assuming that is somewhere else. I don't know what the real advantage is of having the numbered version. I mean, I guess that is kind of nice, I assume, to just be able to flip back and see, okay, I'm on 8, trapped hallway, where is that? But also, if I'm looking at the adventure, hopefully I didn't just spoil it for someone, I apologize if I did, there is a little section inside the map. So, I mean, I would be curious to see how much people use the inside cover. It's a smart idea, I just wonder if it's... Because really, what else are you going to do with the inside cover? It's nice to have it. But I'm also like, is that convenient? Probably just as convenient as anything else, so why not do it? And then on the back, you have a little cheat sheet. This, I think, is smart. You've got experience points, accomplishment XP, difficulty classes. This is kind of like a mini GM screen on the back here. Identifying creatures, the example DCs for that, and the creature traits. So aberration... Oh, I see. So aberration, the skill to identify it, is occultism. For an animal, the skill is nature. For a beast, it's arcana or nature. Construct is arcana or crafting. That's cool. Dragon is arcana. Okay, that makes sense. Elemental is arcana and nature. Fey is nature. Fey is nature. Oh, that's funny. Humanoid is society. That makes sense. Ooze is occultism. And undead is religion. Interesting. A little combat guide, which shows up the first time the players encounter combat. That's smart. Yeah, so the second example, maybe third example of experience points, third example of experience points says, sometimes challenges offer multiple ways for the heroes to overcome them. No matter how the heroes overcome a challenge, they earn XP for doing so, but only the first time they overcome it. If the heroes avoid the fight with the spider and you award them XP for doing so, they don't get more XP if they later go back and fight the spider. That's a good approach, actually. I've never really heard that, but it's smart, because I haven't used XP in so long. There's some good art in this as well, which I'm not going to show off because it is a spoiler. This is also a very different adventure, it seems, than the one for solo play, which is nice. These kobolds? These are their versions of kobolds? That's cool artwork for a kobold. Really leaning into the dragon theming. I'm going to show it off, because I like it. That's their version of a kobold. And then there's another one here, which is how I realized what we were seeing. This one has a little bit more of the kobold energy. I don't know how else to put it, even though it's a very different design. Yeah, skink is a good point of comparison. Yeah, I don't think about skinks that often, but it does apply. I really like the, ooh. That's a cool kobold. Flatheads make you deads. That is a cool design. But I always like the Pathfinder artwork for their monsters, based on what I've seen. I don't have a bestiary, because I'm not running a Pathfinder game right now, but like anytime I see the art for goblins, I've always liked Pathfinder goblins. I think those have always looked really cool. Mr. Fizzer, you said, where's the line for how much lore is too much to include for a starter set? I think this is maybe what ties it all together, is giving you a place to actually do an adventure, which is a smart solution. It's a lot of info. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Wow, and then you have, like, dangerous locales. Even a town as small and comfortable as Otari has its fair share of dangerous places nearby that many locals know to avoid. That makes them perfect places for adventurers to investigate. And these are places that are not within Otari, it doesn't seem like for the most part, but are nearby. There's like 4 of them. Then you have story seeds. The heroes might end up spending some time in Otari, and adventures can happen in town just as easily as in a dungeon or the wilderness. Here are possible encounters and seeds for larger stories. And then, the adventure in this book and the story seeds below aren't the only adventures this town offers. The standalone Pathfinder adventure, Troubles in Otari, continues the story begun here and brings heroes all the way to 5th level. The Abomination Vault's adventure path is a separate series of 3 linked adventures, starting with Ruins of Gauntlight, set in Otari, and a dangerous dungeon just to the north. Of course, you can also invent adventures of your own. Very, very smart. Would have been maybe something that other people making other starter sets should have thought about a little bit. Yeah, Mr. Fizzer, it feels like a local area, as Matt Colville would describe, of like, okay, here's the town. Also, here are some story seeds. The Tal'Dorei Reborn book does that as well, where it's like, here are adventures in each of these locations. It's really smart. Right, here's the flip map. But this is the map from Otari. Not of Otari, but from that adventure. We have tokens. These are cool. You could give people these things so they can actually... No, these are not dry erase. Well, the map is dry erase. These are not. These are just cardboard. But you have tokens you can also give your players. You can pop these out, and they can basically use these to, I assume, keep track of how many actions they've each spent. Yeah, there should be enough for that. For a party of 6. Or a party of... Yeah, party of 6. Yeah, it's a good owlbear as well. It's a great owlbear. And then there's the last thing. Pathfinder Society. So, you know, come play Pathfinder with people. A world of adventure, exploration, and intrigue awaits. Join the Pathfinder Society today. Oh, this is cool. Oh, this is just the core books, mainly. Oh, no, it's not. So this is, you know, we just did the Pathfinder Society flyer, and then this is the buy more books from us, which, of course, they were going to include that. Want more Pathfinder? Keep playing with additional adventures suited for the beginner box, or jump into the full version of the Pathfinder game. So they're making it clear, hey, if you buy Troubles in Otari, you don't need to buy the more rule books to keep running the game. Now, oh yeah, that's true. Troubles in Otari, keep playing with the beginner box rules in this anthology of 3 adventures set in Otari and the surrounding region. The adventures start at 2nd level, and you can level up characters to 4th level using the rules within. That's really cool. And then, as they say, here's the core rulebooks. Core rulebook, Advanced Player's Guide, Bestiary, and Game Mastery Guide. So what are my final thoughts on the beginner box? Well, I really like the way this information is presented. Obviously, there's a ton of info, but the trade-off is that this seems to include all the choices you would get if you made your characters using the core rulebook. I mean, yes, it's only a few select classes, and the versions provided only go up to about level 4, but based on my understanding, it seems like within that limited scope, otherwise these are all the same choices you would get if you used the core rulebook. If that's not true, it at least feels true, and for a new player like me, that is maybe just as valuable. For contrast, the first D&D starter set includes pre-generated characters and instructions for how to level them up, but doesn't actually give you any choices. These designs serve different goals. One of the priorities for Wizards of the Coast as they launched 5th edition was to make sure there was a simplified form of character creation, since they know that the tedious process of creating a character can turn new players off of the experience. It's the same reason why they include quick start options in the player's handbook. Pathfinder doesn't seem to take that approach, which, yes, it does kind of mean that character creation can be more daunting, but I think the Pathfinder Beginner's Box demonstrates that there's still a way to help present the information in the beginner box in such a way that it isn't as intimidating as it could be. This is just a difference in design philosophy. I don't know that I would say that either one is better or worse. There are definitely pluses and minuses to both. Now, let's talk about the adventure. Not the single-player adventure, more on that later, but the one intended for a group. I haven't run it yet, I haven't even read through it yet, but immediately, the fact that they're telling us exactly which adventure to go play next after finishing this adventure, even before you've read it, it's very obvious as you're reading the box. That's brilliant design. This is something the first D&D starter set didn't do because it was the first product produced for 5th edition, so there was no follow-up adventure to send people to. And while they would later point out that you could jump right from the starter set to any other pre-written adventure, first, that information isn't in the starter set, it's just online. Second, no, you kind of can't, because not only is there no clear point of connection to tie these adventures to Lost Mine of Phandelver, but you're expected to end that adventure at 5th level, and most of 5e's pre-written adventures begin at 1st or 3rd level. And by the way, this also seems to be the case as well for the Essentials Kit and the other starter set. I haven't read through those all the way yet, so maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's something else in there that links them to other adventures, but I do not think that's the case. And third, in order to continue leveling up your character after you've finished the starter set adventure, you need to get your hands on the player's handbook. Now, I had personally never considered that to be a design flaw. Like, of course you're going to need a player's handbook to keep playing D&D, that's how it works. But now that I've seen the other option, I really like that the Pathfinder Beginner Box gives you the material to level up your character for a few levels beyond the end of the adventure, and then they tell you which adventure to go buy to keep playing these characters without having to level up the characters beyond what's included in the box. I was already, kind of curious what it would be like to run this adventure, but now I'm actually really interested in reading and running this adventure and probably following it up with the other adventure they referenced. It's such a smart way to ease GMs into buying more products and continuing their Pathfinder journey without making the intense commitment of the core handbooks. That said, the adventure is in the same book as the rulebook, and I don't personally love that. Personally, I like those things being separate, but that's my preference. Generally speaking, I don't mind having multiple books open at the table. It's easier for me than flipping back and forth in the same book, because that makes it really easy for me to lose my place. It's harder for me to reference the adventure side by side with the stat block or the rules, but again, that's personal preference. I don't know if anyone feels the same way. If you don't, let me know. So I'm not going to dock points from Pathfinder for including everything in only 2 books. That's probably the right solution for what they're doing. And definitely putting all of the character creation rules in the same book as the solo adventure is excellent design, but we'll talk more about that next week. Because here's the thing. I had no idea there was going to be a solo adventure when I opened up this box. And so, just as a bit of fun, I actually played through the solo adventure live on stream. But this video is pretty long, so I'm going to give you that part of the video next week on Monday. We'll come back for my playthrough of the solo adventure and the way it segues really neatly into the character creation materials included in the book. So make sure to subscribe so you get that video when it drops next week. Now, I told you that at the end of this video, I would let you know how you can win this copy of the beginner box that Paizo sent me. We're going to do a giveaway in the comments for this video. This giveaway is only going to be available to viewers in the United States. Leave a comment about your favorite feature in this box and make sure to include a line that says you're interested in the contest. But don't make that the entire comment. Say something else interesting about the video itself as well. That's my criteria. Say something about the contest and say something about the video itself. That's what I'll use to sort the relevant comments. Then in 2 weeks, I'll put the results into a randomizer and pull a winner. I'll announce that winner in a video towards the end of August. I've got a video coming out in 1 month on August 24th. That's where I'll announce the winner. So if you want to make sure that you know whether or not you've won the contest, make sure to subscribe. Oh, and I'm not going to reply to your comment and tell you that you've won. I might reply and say that you should watch the video that came out on August 24th if you haven't reached out to contact me after I announce it. But if someone replies to your comments and says that you won, that's spam. That is not what I do. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel financially, join me on Patreon. If you want to hang out with other awesome people sharing advice and stories and recruiting for games, come join my Discord server. If you want to catch these live streams, follow me on Twitch. I just got finished with a bunch of housework, so I should have a lot more free time to go live now, and I've got a lot of fun content planned for upcoming streams. And make sure to subscribe to my newsletter to stay up to date with my latest announcements, including an announcement coming soon about a belated 35,000 subscriber live stream. I'm really overdue on that one, but like I said, I had a lot on my plate that is finally, mostly, cleared off. I've been making a lot more content about Pathfinder this month, so if you didn't see it, check out my video about my very first Pathfinder character and the awesome lore around it. Until next time, play fair and have fun.